For centuries, Mount Shasta has been called a gateway, a place where the veil between worlds thins, and something ancient still watches from below. The stories began with the First Nations, who warned of spirits guarding the mountain's heart, and continued with explorers, occultists, and wanderers, who claimed to glimpse glowing cities through the fog. But lately, the silence has started to fracture once again. Strange lights flicker on the slopes. Military helicopters circle with transponders off, and hikers vanish, leaving only melted snow in perfect circles, where they once stood. Some say it's coincidence. Others say it's the Lemurians, the survivors of a civilization lost beneath the Pacific, and that they've awakened once again. Tonight, we return to the mountain that defies explanation to uncover the new evidence, the forbidden documents, and the chilling testimonies that suggest something impossible is stirring beneath the ice. So, join me here on Blackwood Mysteries. From the moment the first stories of Telos took root in the early 20th century, Mount Shasta has remained a beacon for the strange. Yet, as decades passed and technology advanced, the mysteries somehow did not fade. They only evolved. What once were whispered myths of glowing caverns and robed figures became threads woven through government reports, radar logs, missing person files, and grainy videotapes smuggled from research stations that should have never existed. Locals began to notice it again in the early 1970s. Strange humming lights orbited the summit, vanishing into fissures the geological surveys insisted did not exist. Park rangers described nights when the air vibrated like a low-frequency engine, followed by complete silence, as if the mountain itself was holding its breath. In 1977, a series of hikers vanished within a 12 miles radius of Panther Meadow. Only melted snow and concentric patterns remained. Circles that investigators could not explain. A joint Air Force Forest Service task group quietly entered the area, under the guise of satellite debris recovery, and witnesses claimed to see them, unloading metallic crates etched with triangular emblems not associated with any known U.S. unit. Freedom of Information requests later revealed a declassified memo titled Operation Eclipse. Though heavily redacted, one sentence remained. Sustained subterranean resonance consistent with directed energy origin beneath the south face. In 1982, a ham radio enthusiast named Robert Campbell recorded a series of transmissions while scanning emergency frequencies near the mountain. The voice that emerged was metallic yet faintly human. It said, "We are here beneath the veil. The toss still breathes." Spectrogram analysis showed harmonic overtones outside of normal speech range, identical to ELF, or extremely low frequency patterns used by the Navy to contact submarines. Campbell's radio melted 2 days later, and his house burned down that same week, and no cause for either was ever determined. Like most places that carry any sort of potential otherworldly characteristics, it is not uncommon for cults and religious orders to tend to form around them. Within New Age circles, reports surfaced of contact nights in which participants claimed the Lemurians communicated telepathically through guided meditation. Several cult offshoots, including the Church of Telos Reborn and the Order of the Fifth Sun, took root in the 1980s. Their doctrine mixed the writings of Frederick Oliver with the space age mysticism of Ashto Command, but among their members, disappearances became routine. Between 1985 and 1992, at least 9 devotees were reported missing after pilgrimages to Mount Shasta. Their tents were found empty, their journals abruptly ending mid-sentence with phrases like, "The gate is open." In 1995, satellite thermal imaging revealed heat anomalies beneath Shasta's southern slope. The readings indicated an internal structure emitting energy equivalent to a small reactor. Official statements attributed it to geothermal vents, yet the coordinates matched precisely with the 1930s sightings reports of Edward Lynn, where he claimed to have seen temples of light. Whistleblowers from nearby Bale Air Force Base later described a classified program named Deep Singularity. Its objective to study non-terrestrial infrastructure within continental volcanic formations. One anonymous source confessed that Shasta was their primary site. He spoke of seismic scanners detecting hollow geometry that shifted position as if the mountain's interior was alive and moving. When reporters pursued the story, every one of their articles was pulled within 48 hours. Since 2008, hikers have posted thousands of images showing luminous spheres hovering near the peak. Infrared analysis shows these orbs emit structured light, not reflection. In 2016, a pilot flying from Medford to Reading recorded a glowing ring forming over Shasta, expanding to several miles before collapsing inward. Moments later, radar contact was briefly lost. UFO researchers propose the mountain acts as a transdimensional aperture powered by the very crystalline network described in A Dweller on Two Planets. Indigenous Karuk and Modoc elders meanwhile warned that the Lons are guardians of that rift. Not extraterrestrial visitors, but survivors of an older Earth, maintaining balance between our realm and another. The National Park Service archives list 41 unsolved disappearances since 1960 around Mount Shasta, most between late August and mid-September. When magnetic readings spike, search dogs lose scent without reason. GPS devices fail. In 2019, a boy vanished for 5 hours near McBride Springs only to be found unharmed. He told rescuers that a tall white man took me underground to see the glowing sun. His body temperature was normal despite freezing conditions. Recent geophysical data from 2024 detected rhythmic vibrations inside the mountain. A pulse repeating every 108 minutes. Physicists dismissed it as magma resonance. Yet frequencies recorded match those found in Schumann resonances, the Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat. Ancient Lemurian texts referenced in the Book of Telos speak of the continuum, a cyclical awakening when the inner city synchronizes with planetary frequency to reveal its crown of light. Last winter, residents of Weed, California, kind of ironic, reported a blinding flash over the summit followed by days of electrical disruption. Photographs taken at 3:12 a.m. show a vertical column of light piercing the clouds. One frame captures faint silhouettes within the beam. They were humanoid, elongated, and appeared to be robed. Officials blamed atmospheric reflections from SpaceX satellites, but who knows if that's indeed what it was. So, I received an email several months ago from an individual named Daniel who wanted to share his captivating personal story surrounding Mount Shasta. I will go ahead and share that with you now. This took place July 17, 2003. Our first trip to Mount Shasta, we all stayed at a hotel on the side of Mount Shasta. There were 3 of us, myself, my wife, and our good friend Paul. I had awakened from my slumber at about 6 a.m. as we were going to go hiking on the mountain that day. As I was waking up, I became instantly aware that I heard a very strange and unusual music. It wasn't like hearing with my ears, but like hearing music from another room being played very softly. I described the experience as having the music played directly into my soul. The music had a very regal and noble quality to it with a strong, slow, majestic beat. I was quite surprised by this music and quickly asked my wife and friend if they had heard it. They indicated that they indeed had heard it as well and described it in a very similar fashion. That day, we went hiking using a compass up the northeast face of the mountain to the tree line, which is what we figured was about 1/3 of the way up. On our long drive to Mount Shasta, we had studied some Sanskrit words of greeting, which we felt might jokingly come in handy should we come across some Lemurians. To our surprise, while hiking on the mountain, we called out, "Ha Jua," loudly and received almost an immediate one back to us. However, the ones that came back to us were in different voices other than our own. We assumed that the words that were coming back at us were from him since he had learned the Sanskrit greetings alongside us. However, upon joining up with him a few minutes later, we questioned him intensely, figuring that he was pulling a prank. He very clearly had not been the one to respond to our call. Another very unique experience we had on the mountain was during broad daylight. While I was sitting on a log chatting with another person we had befriended while hiking, right in the middle of our conversation, we heard what sounded like a woman crying loudly for about 5 to 10 seconds. There was no one around, including my wife, who came up the trail a good several minutes later. I heard the sound and so did the gentleman I was chatting with, and this experience was one of the more unusual we had while there. But our most unusual experience by far was when we were coming down the northeast face of Mount Shasta in a fairly remote area, using nothing but our compass to guide us. There were no trails at all in this immediate area. We had reached relatively level ground and had come to a beautiful open meadow area. I had raised my gaze up from the ground to see a man dressed in brown long robes who was very tall with a full beard and mustache facing down looking towards me. It was as quick as maybe 1/100th of a second and then he was gone. In the split second that I saw this man, I gave out quite a knee-jerk reaction shriek as I was caught off guard. I had been quite absorbed into my thoughts previous to seeing him. My wife and friend Paul had not been looking in the same direction and had not seen the man, unfortunately. On our subsequent 3 more visits to Mount Shasta while camping in our tent, all 3 of us heard men and women voices singing separately and alternatively as part of a chorus, as well as what many call oming. In all occurrences, it would seem like the hearing of the music was played directly to our souls, not heard with our ears necessarily. Also, it was heard most clearly when we were drifting off to sleep. Although we heard the oming even while we were awake, and this was while we were camped deep into a near military pass road with an incredible view of Mount Shasta. I remember going outside of the tent to see if I would be able to hear the oming, and I could still hear it ever so faintly. We explored a lava cave known as Pluto Cave with ceilings as high as about 10 to 12 feet. Part of the cave ceiling had already fallen in. We then hiked back as far into the mountain cave as we could into the pitch blackness. It was at this point that we all felt like we were being surrounded by unseen entities on either side of us. I'd love to hear about other people's experiences at Mount Shasta or other places. Donald, well, my friend, I appreciate you taking the time to send your story in. It certainly sounds like quite the interesting series of experiences. Today, Mount Shasta stands as it always has, silent, immense, and unknowable. Whether it hides an ancient civilization, an interdimensional rift, or a secret government facility matters little, the mountain remains both mirror and mystery, reflecting humanity's hunger to believe that someone or something still watches, even if it's from below. And for those who have climbed the slopes under a full moon, there are nights when the wind carries a low hum, one that's rhythmic and deliberate. Some say it's the sound of magma shifting. Others swear it's the echo of chanting, a chorus in a language lost before time began. Either way, the mountain endures. And somewhere deep beneath its frozen crown, the Lemurians wait. Thank you guys so much for watching this newest video. If you like the video, please give it a like, hype if you can, subscribe if you're not already, and leave me a comment letting me know your thoughts down below.